gentlemen, and welcome to the regular select board meeting of September 13th, 2022. If you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, we will begin our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could just remain standing, and I'd like to ask for a moment of silence in remembrance of September 11th. Thank you. The orders have been signed. Good evening, Joe, and welcome.
Good evening.
The select board minutes, August 30th, are in front of you.
Move we approve as printed.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Sharon to approve the minutes as printed. Does anyone have any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes of August 30th? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
None opposed. The minutes are approved, and I will circulate these for signature. And while these are circulating, I would I'd like to inform everyone here that due to the necessity of a executive session, which would be a little bit more protracted than usual, we intend to conduct that after the department head reports. And in that regard, I would ask the department heads, if you can, to be as brief as possible with your reports, only giving the critical information needed. And there's been a change in the agenda in that regard also. Agenda item A, the board to meet with Kyle Medash from Vermont ANR regarding the river corridor management. He has been exposed to COVID in any case and would be virtual, but he's agreed to postpone his presentation until September 27th. And also item D, the board to discuss the delinquent tax collector transition will be tabled until potentially the next meeting or until further notice. And Jim Schultz, our tax collector, has agreed to that. So that will not take place this evening.
So you don't need any motion.
I don't believe so, really, as long as everybody's content with that, and they are. Are there any announcements from board members? Nice glasses.
Well, I apologize, but I had eye surgery, so the lights bother me.
Okay, that was the announcement I was looking for.
Oh, okay.
Congratulations, and I'm glad you're healing.
I am.
Any others?
I have one, but it's a motion too. It's kind of a wrap up for our townwide celebration. I would move that we donate $500 to the Foley Cancer Center as a thank you to Happy Cow.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to donate $500 to the Foley Cancer Center, which is the charity that the Happy Cow always gives proceeds to. from the town as a thank you for his participation in our townwide celebration. And that's been seconded. Any discussion? This is a we have done this in the past.
We have done it. The last time we gave 250, that was 3 years ago, and the price of things have gone up.
Right. And not only that, but Mr. Foley graciously acceded to stay there for the whole day. And as a matter of fact, he was like even 10 minutes after the whole day.
How many did you have?
One.
He made the best hot fudge sundae I've had in a long time. But then again, we were in the sandbox together, so.
Are there any other critical comments about this motion from
Oh,
board
sorry.
members? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And it's a unanimous motion, and we will make that donation. Okay, now any other announcements from board members? Oh, one, almost forgot again. Have another thank you note, which came in at some point here in the recent past. Dear Rutland Town Scholarship Committee, I'm honored and grateful that you chose me as a recipient of your scholarship. This scholarship will help me feel a sense of financial security and let me focus more on my studies as a freshman at the University of Vermont. Thank you very much for the generous award and for taking the time to review my application. With gratitude, Macy Celentano. It's a very nice note. We'll post that up on the bulletin board. Okay, this is the time in our select board meeting where we give any member of the public who is not on the agenda the opportunity to address the board on any matter that they wish. Is there anyone on the Zoom call that wishes to address the board? Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board? Yes, sir. If you would, please come up to the testimony table so we can
Absolutely.
have it on the recording for
Sure.
posterity.
Sure.
And give your name and position.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Mark Riley, and I'm the general manager at the Hampton Inn here in Rutland Town. So my first time attending one of these, and so I'd like to thank you, not just for what you are going to hear from me this evening, but also for everything throughout the years. And we appreciate your hard work. Here tonight, just to voice a professional opinion, I guess it would be, regarding the matters taking place next door to me at the property previously known as the Holiday Inn and now the Cortina Inn. I could go on and on with pictures, stories, emails about how affected we have been for over 2 years now by what's been going on there. I will save most of that. If anybody would like any evidence of what I'm referring to, I'd be glad to share that via email, phone, in another meeting if you'd like, if it was that important. But it's just gotten to the point now where I thought it was time to let my voice be heard and say just how much of a detriment it has on our business, allowing that to go on there. The process of trying to get people no trespass orders has become more difficult over time. We have a lot of traffic. The fence was installed. I actually have to admit, I don't know if that was at the doing of the Holiday Inn at the request of the town or the state. but it has just become very detrimental. The fence continues to be broken. Right on the fence line, we regularly find needles. The parking lot is an eyesore over there. Just business in general, and it's I understand that the people need help. Everybody needs a little help sometime, right? But it's gotten now to be it's beyond helping folks. It's enabling folks, is my opinion. And it's just not a very good look for the town or the hotel, the businesses in general in that area. You know, I have some of the largest accounts in probably Rutland County, if not the state of Vermont, for some of our larger employers in the area. And they're on a regular basis flabbergasted by what they see just out their window. It's gotten to the point now where we don't like to put any corporate guests on the that would be the south facing side of the building, just because of what they can see in the parking lot alone. You know, regular visits by myself, my engineer, noise complaints, alleged abuse in the parking lot, fights very regularly. I don't have to tell the gentleman over there, you know, they're involved regularly with going over for visits, more than that has ever taken place prior to the pandemic, let's say. So I'd be glad to welcome you to stop by the hotel anytime. I could show you more evidence. I can show you what we're talking about. I can show you the view it is looking down. And the sad thing for me is when the school bus comes in and drops the kids off, knowing that there's actually town residents, kids, you know, living there amongst that. It's really quite startling. And I don't know if anybody has come in and quite given that stark of a review of what we see there. So I'm open for phone calls, discussion. Be glad to speak with anybody. I spoke with Chief Dumas and Deputy Chief Washburn yesterday. That was regarding a criminal matter that took place in the Dick's Sporting Goods outlet and transferred over to that property, which is a ongoing theme. So if you'd like anything else from me, I'd be glad to answer questions.
Well, first of all, on behalf of the board, thank you very much for coming in, and thank you very much for your succinct explanation of what's going on. In answer to your questions that we can answer, yes, the fence was put there at the request of the town. No, it is not a sufficient fence. We have had both formal and informal discussions with the owners of the establishment. I can't tell you what the formal discussions are because it's a matter of litigation and we are in that process right now. But all of the concerns that you have addressed are subjects for discussion. And we have had informal discussions with the ownership, and they understand that more visible presence of law enforcement, full law enforcement authority to arrest and prosecute is required. And all I can say to you, because it is in litigation, is that we are working on it and we understand every single thing that you're saying, but there's only so much the town can do. And at least from my perspective, and I believe from the boards, we're doing every single thing that is within our powers to do. And we hope to achieve success for everyone.
Understood.
And any other board members would like to chime in?
Yeah, I would, because I worked with the homeless for over 40 years. And I want to explain to you, the homeless that you are seeing south of the city are not, this area is homeless 100%, by no means. And the people, the true homeless, the veterans, they are homeless and they come to us. But we have rules, and that's what's missing, in my opinion. So I don't want you to think that every homeless person is,
Not,
a derelict.
not at all.
There are homeless people, in particular veterans, that truly are homeless, maybe because of their medical condition or other things like that. However, this is personal for me, and I personally believe that many here are on vacation on our ticket and on the taxpayers of the town of Rutland. And I'm not afraid to say that. That is the way I feel. And I don't think anybody in this room has had more interaction with homeless than I have, and maybe Teddy.
Right. No, and
So-
I understand that.
So I wholeheartedly sympathize with you. I had relatives come and want to stay. I said, stay up on the mountain, because I don't want them down there in that mess. And you run a wonderful facility, but that's what's happening, and that's just not fair to you. And I appreciate you, and I would hope you will supply us with evidence, because I think we can use it.
Okay.
All right. That's my take.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in. We hear second or third or fourth hand anecdotes, but it's nice to have live and in person. So I appreciate that very much.
Of course.
Do we have all your contact information so we can get a
I
hold
have
of you
my
again?
business cards right on me. I might hand a couple out to you folks, and
Please.
Thank you.
everybody can reach out to me as needed. And
Yep, for
of
sure.
course, the police have it, but I'll hand
At
that.
some point, our attorney may want to reach out to you,
Be glad
and
to.
if with your permission.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm obviously an agent of, JCH Hospitality Management or Butson Hotel Management. They're my ownership, but as a general manager, I have authority to come and speak. So I'm glad I
Thank
did
you
so.
for that.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Joe DiNardo? We have a board member that's.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the only thoughts are, and if this is something that we could do, if you have any idea how to solve this problem, the board has been racking its brain for a year and a half how to solve it, and we could use any help as far as if you have any ideas how to make this problem, because the state of Vermont is the ones that are paying the bill, and it doesn't appear that they are listening. And I don't know if there's a association of hospitality facilities like you are managing that could get involved with the state of Vermont to put some pressure on them to help correct this situation down there, because we're doing what we can and trying to do what we can, but we need more help, and we need somebody with maybe put some pressure on the state that they need to do something different. That's where this all stems from, the state being out there paying this enterprise thousands of dollars a month, and they're just not going to turn it down. And we need some help with how to put pressure on the state to make this better. And I think that's where the ultimate resolution of this problem is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have thoughts. I don't know if you want me to share them now or if that's an entirely different meeting, but
Well, if you can do it in a couple minutes, no, go
Well,
ahead.
I mean-
You've taken the time to. come
right.
in.
So without getting into too much personal detail about what we encountered, I realize that the state has a very significant role in what has gone on here. I understood that. It was the day before Thanksgiving 2 years ago, and I was told by my management company that because of the slowdown on business because of the pandemic, that I was going to be receiving on Thanksgiving Eve 10 of these rooms at my facility. I had voiced my displeasure with it, but I am told to do what I am told to do by my boss. So we had a sister facility up in Middlebury that had this very strict code of conduct. Drugs, alcohol were prohibited, and only registered guests in the rooms. And our deal with the state of Vermont was it was only going to be families. I can tell you that I understand that the support from the state of Vermont might not be there completely with you, because I was sold a bill of goods out of my 10 rooms, and I think Officer Washburn will attest to this. I had 8 of them removed, mostly by this guy, in 2 days. The drugs, the drinking, and then the 2 or 3 other rooms that we had, I had them out within a couple of weeks. And they were the worst of the worst. And I think Mr. Washburn will agree to that as well. And it was a solution that they thought. And so I was told that I wasn't allowed to have them sign this by the state, that they weren't allowed to sign this code of conduct. And I told them that I wasn't going to help any further. And that worked out quite well for me. And it was fairly sad to see the amount of business that I got from other hotels that were still taking the business. I got more business because people did not feel comfortable being in that scenario. We need fences. We need continued pressure by me, the authorities, of course, folks like yourself. But let's not forget that we need the state's help on this. My powers and my we don't really belong to any true associations that would have a lot of pull at the state level. But of course, my ownership probably has a little bit more power and pull, and my owner and my vice president of the company who have been around Vermont and this area for quite some time. And so I will discuss with them anything that they think we could do on our end to help support you guys in any way that I can. But yeah, we'll start by getting you some evidence of what I found.
Thank you.
We will, is there just a general email that I could jot down where I could send something to everybody when I?
You send it to our administrator and we'll,
Okay.
And
we'll
he
get
can
it.
disperse it.
We'll
Perfect.
get it.
Good.
And I can assure you that we're being as proactive in this as a volunteer board, basically. I mean, we're not a full-time officials,
Sure.
but we're being as proactive as we possibly can. And I think we're on the verge of being successful, but we're not there yet, but we'll get there.
certainly a little additional information doesn't hurt anything.
No, it
right?
doesn't.
So,
And thank you again for coming in.
and thank you all. All right.
Thank you.
And
We
by
can
the
get
way,
your
welcome,
cards,
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
welcome to the town. We really appreciate your business.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. Thanks. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Beautiful. That's the generalized, all right. Beautiful. Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public that wishes to address the board on any matter? Lynette, you can do your presentation under Taz, okay? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to the department head reports, and our first one is from Barbara Pulling, our Town Planning Commission Chair. Good evening, Barb.
Good evening. Hi, everybody. The slightly revised permit tracking ordinance, along with a questionnaire and a new permit application, have been sent to the town attorney on your behalf, so he can take a look at it and report back to you. I don't believe he has had time to look at that yet. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, based on all of the pending litigation that he's faced with.
Okay, yeah, so we'll come back to that at a later time. In the meantime, I will be bringing up with the commission for the first time a new letter about Kinney Motors, and they're going through another law firm now to get the town to sign off that they're in compliance with all municipal regulations. So when the first letter from Langrock came, the board, the planning commission board was quite uncomfortable with that, and didn't know how to proceed along the lines of, how do we conduct this and how do we respond, other than to the letter we did send about the town attorney's involvement. So, Mary, you indicated the last meeting that this was something the town had done for businesses before. And so
No, I don't think so. Other towns, some have done it, and I have seen lawyers request it as part of a title search. But if you look at the proposed ordinance on page 2, there is a place where the select board does issue a written statement that establishes any proposed construction permit meets the necessary permits and approvals. So, and this is our existing ordinance, so I'm not surprised that we were asked to provide that kind of a letter because it is called for in our existing ordinance.
for construction,
For construction.
development. Yeah, and then this seems to be more of a carte blanche kind of request.
And that it is, lawyers are expected to do their own investigation, and sometimes it's just easier to get a letter saying everything is in compliance.
Right.
But if it isn't, they have to then do a little more homework and do their own checking on permits. So.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, and, there's another concern that one of these properties is in the Moonbrook watershed. So that's another whole set of possible issues and things that we're not in the practice of doing, being pre-enforcement, if you will, going out there and see if there are issues with an existing ordinance. So if you're comfortable, we'll just kick this back to the latest law firm.
I mean, are they in compliance with any permits that they currently have?
I don't know, Kurt.
That's not what they're asking.
Well,
So they're asking they're asking for the planning commission to give them a letter saying their properties are in compliance with all town ordinances. Which the planning commission is not in any position to make that statement anyway, but there's a lot of research and time that's gonna have to go
Yeah.
into actually figuring that out. Like, that's not a quick
No,
thing.
I
so-
say table it because we don't have enough.
I'm just trying to figure out what we can send them back for a letter that's polite and tells them to do their own research.
Um, I think what they're looking for, the towns that have zoning, I think sometimes the zoning ordinance provides for a letter saying in
Yeah.
compliance with whatever. So, but we don't have zoning. We do have this statement that we can issue as a select board, not the planning commission. So frankly, I think you could just do we don't have the authority to issue such a letter.
Yeah,
No,
just tell,
we've
tell them we're
got
a
a-
town and no zoning, and
If they're in,
We don't have
if
the
they're in
authority to do that, and-
compliance, if they're in compliance with this permit tracking, the application form, and they fill out the application form, then that's all they need to do for us.
That's for construction,
They're asking for all
Well-
ordinances, not just building.
right?
Yeah, and I'm not sure they're doing any development, anything new.
Right. It could just
No,
be a
they're-
transfer of
they're-
property.
they're selling it.
Okay.
They're selling the property.
We've never done such a thing before that I can remember ever, so.
Yeah.
I don't think we
I
want
just
to,
tell them.
I don't think we want to establish the precedent of doing it either.
Yeah, I just tell them their town is no zoning and we don't have authority to.
Well, I wouldn't go so
do
far
that.
because telling them there's no zoning sometimes lets them off the hook for everything else. So I would just say we have no authority to issue, or the planning commission has no authority to issue such a letter. But you can check that with our town attorney if you'd like. Now that we're back using him for this particular letter, non-letter.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that advice. Just a couple more quick things. The energy survey is out. It's on the town website, right on the banner. And it's on the Facebook page for the town. There's going to be a gap before we get publicity through the circle. Maybe toward the end of October before the next issue comes out. So I may wait until then to when the circle comes out to do much more publicity at this point and do a bigger push then, and maybe push this a little bit longer than October, maybe into November, if that's okay.
With me.
Okay.
I'm the energy committee, so I guess I get to say, yes, that's perfectly fine with me.
Okay, great. Yeah.
And since she's the energy committee, I get to say, I don't have any objection to that.
Okay. And if we've had 10 respondents, so if you're not one of those 10, feel free to get into the survey through the website or Facebook and keep the entries coming. The only other thing tonight is I definitely will not be able to make the next meeting because of the family medical leave situation. But I would like to be at the meeting with Kyle Medash. So is it all right if I arrange for another date with him?
Fine with me. I'll let you take care of that with Kyle.
Okay,
When it's convenient for both of you, then we'll do it.
thank you. That sounds great. And that's all I have, unless you have some questions.
Any questions from board members? Joe, you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set. Thanks, Barb.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Thank you, Barbara.
folks. Okay,
Thanks.
Our next report will be from Mike Rowe, our Town Recreation Director. Good evening, Mike.
How are you all?
Good.
Pretty brief. I emailed Bill our flyer for our Halloween party, which is coming up on the 28th at school at night. Dave has graciously volunteered to go in the woods and scare the kids. So I told you there was a bus coming. So that was a huge success last year. It's a big bus. That was a huge success last year, and we're going to continue with that. The 8th grade will be coming up with the activities, and we basically loop around the trail that's right off the fields behind school. We had like 500 people. Billy, you were there. A ton of people there last year. So I expect the same. They'll come up with the activities, and that will be on a Friday night, which is, I believe, is the 28th.
October. Yeah, Friday night the 28th. We'll be there. So with that anticipation, I've already ordered all the candy. So that is on its way shortly. And soccer and football this is probably the biggest turnout we've had in a long time since I've been around, as far as the numbers of people wanting to participate. If you came behind school yesterday, there were 200 people running around out back, or 150, let's say, between kids, players, coach. It was crazy. So we're very excited that people are getting back into participating in outdoor activities. Other than that, the park is kind of cruising along. Both parks are cruising along. They're good. We only got probably about, I don't know, whatever, a couple weeks left of doing what we got to do, depending on what Mother Nature says to us. And other than that, I don't have anything else, unless you guys have anything for me.
Any questions from board members? Hearing
I
none,
feel better.
thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Make sure you hide the candy though, because there's people that tend to.
Why do I hide it? You'll get a full basket.
I don't need any more.
You're treated well.
I got a full basket
Yeah,
right
from
here.
last year's candy. Last year's candy.
Mike, if you need any help,
There are
on the
some that
28th,
have-
I'm more than willing to go up and help.
Oh, great. That would be great. The kids do a fantastic job.
So I know they do. So if you need extra help, you have my phone number.
Thank you very much.
And Dave, you have a pretty good sized footprint. So are you planning on being a Sasquatch for the Halloween?
A lot for me to scare people.
I don't know. I'm not very big, but I can do a good job.
Our next report will be from Chris Clark, our town fire chief.
It's under the weather.
Since a cheap Delvin I think is.
So we have Deputy Chief Delvinieri. Larry, are you with us?
Can you hear me, Don?
There he is.
Yeah, speak up nice and loud. You're a little bit
Okay,
weak
will
there.
do. Okay, Chief Clark is sick. He's got a little laryngitis and stuff. So I'll be sitting in for him tonight. I'll give you a brief description of what's going on in the department. Last 2 weeks, we had 7 calls that we went to. The department right now is working on ordinances and bylaws. As soon as we get them together, we'll meet with Sharon. If Sharon agrees with them, she'll be bringing them to the board with you. Also, we met with Sharon last Sunday up at her place, and she had to have some answers on the new truck, which she's got. She knows everything that's going on now. And I got a call. I gotta go.
Where are you going?
That
Sorry.
takes care of that. That's what you call a volunteer fire department on duty.
I want to know how you arrange that.
Oh, jeez. Gross.
I'll tell you what, that's what makes this town so special. Really, it does. I'm not kidding. So is he going or is he?
He's already gone.
Oh, he's gone.
He's gone.
He's half into the
And-
station.
And that, folks, completes the deputy chief's report for this evening.
Keep it short.
Our next department head reporting will be Dave Sears, our town road commissioner. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening.
I think as I said at the last meeting, we rented an excavator for the month of September, so we've been doing some ditching and some swale work and a bunch of that stuff. So we had a drainage problem on Ox Yoke Road. We dug that out and rip-wrapped that and repaired that, got that all flowing. Easy Street, we had a drainage complaint there. We fixed that. We spent a whole day cleaning up trees from a storm that just kept, every time we get something cleaned up and try to get done, somebody called and said there's another one down somewhere else. So we just chased them around for a day. Bittersweet, we fixed their swale, and I'm trying to be quick. Lynette Drive, we got a, grants and aid grant. And we took care of that, culvert outfall, last week. And we're just moving forward with that type stuff, swales, ditches, and grants and aid.
Town line project?
Moving along swimmingly, sort of. They're backfilling now. Hopefully we can get the road kind of open sometime next week, end of next week, first part of the following week. Through some discussions, we decided that instead of paving all of Town Line Road this year, we're just going to pave where the construction project is and just let that kind of winter and hit it in the spring, first or second project of the year. And that way it'll just be a continuous map through that whole thing, and any settling or anything that's going to happen, which will, because they're in some places are 25, 30 feet deep. So we'll just let that all kind of settle out over the winter and make it all smooth and nice in the spring.
Yep. Yeah, I had a discussion with Bill this week about the financing on that, and we're fine being able to split the money up as long as Fuller is in an agreement with it.
Yep,
And,
I spoke to him and he was totally on board with all of it.
Good.
Yep.
Well, that makes sense to do it that way. That's smart. That it?
That's all I got.
Anybody have any questions for our road commissioner?
Just to thank you for the cleanup down on Creek Road. I thought it was one branch down. It was a snarl of, I
Yes,
don't
it
know,
was.
a dozen.
It was, yeah, it
Yeah.
was 10 or 11. I didn't count them, but there was a lot.
There was a lot. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the quick response on McKinley as well. Told my wife there was a tree down, and the next time she went down there, which wasn't too long afterwards, she said, "What tree? It's all gone."
We actually cleaned up a couple other ones going down the hill too, so.
Right. Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
He's still in that seat. I think they don't. Most. I think we probably need to do that as a committee meeting. There's a few things in the snow plowing contract that need to be further hashed out in relation to some information I found out in regards to insurance and how we're gonna work that all out. So if we could get a committee meeting scheduled for that would be probably most appropriate.
Would it be appropriate for you to meet with the highway commissioner and present it to him and then have him present it to the committee?
The select board, so I think it'd probably be appropriate to do that in a committee session.
Well, that'll be my decision, not yours. But in any case, you know, I would think you to bring the concerns to Dave, and we'll go from there.
We can do that.
I mean, you know, I don't have any objection to it, but I like to use the process. And I also like to use the what do you want to say? I like to use the chain of command properly, and it is appropriate that he have the first look at that.
Fine.
So if you would, share it with him, and then if he wants to have that committee meeting, we'll have it and you'll be invited. So.
Good.
Thank you, BJ. And our next report will be from Kari Clark, our town clerk and treasurer, who is not presently under the weather. And welcome back. And it's good to see you healthy. And
thank you. Good to be healthy.
Good.
Okay.
On Monday or something.
I know you said make it brief, but I wasn't here.
oh, you
last
go ahead with
time.
what you got. It's, you know,
Okay. Let's see. We'll start off with the taxes. We just had our deadline yesterday. We're still processing some taxes that came in the mail. But we're looking good on the first installment. We don't have a percentage yet, but we do have roughly left an average usually is around 350,000 for the first installment that, we're waiting on. And that usually rolls right down to the delinquent tax collector, but it looks like that's where we're gonna end up, most likely after processing these taxes. It seemed to work well that times and signs were put up as far as our drop box. We talked about in the BCA to put a reminder by the mailbox that end of business is the deadline for taxes, and that seemed to be very helpful for people. On to the next election. It's important to know that the state is sending out the ballots for November, and we received notification that they pulled the mailing addresses for that on the 8th. So that was last week. So they are already starting the process quite early, but they do it for their reasons. And they are sending out starting no later than the 26th of this month. So it depends on the town. So we could be, we could be at the beginning of October. We're not really sure when we'll see those, but it will be quite early. So whatever the address is in the system is where your ballot is going to go to. And that's basically what the state has done. If you have any questions, just give our office a call and we can help you along with that. Our audit is going to continue to be completed this week. We'll see Tim Smith from AM Peisch here tomorrow and the next day. So he'll be in my office most of the day tomorrow and Thursday. And we received our local option tax money for one of our quarters. We got that the middle of August. We received slightly less this time than we did at the same time last year. And I say slightly less, it's about, if I were to compare this time to last year, there's about a $12,500 difference. So less.
12.5.
12.5. Mm-hmm.
So what was the amount?
We received $349,771. Still higher than what we were anticipating, but lower than last year. Our ARPA money came to us.
Go ahead. Excuse me for interrupting you, but when you say 12.5 less, that's 12.5 less than last year.
At this
But
quarter.
at this time, but last year's total amount was 400,000 greater than the year before.
Correct. Correct.
Good to keep that in perspective.
Yes. Our ARPA money, I believe we still are owed 2 installments this year, and the first of 2 came to us. Looks like the end of August. So I'll be taking that money and putting it in our ARPA checking account in the bank. This amount is $215,342. And I continue to pay the new public safety building invoices. And if you remember, we are tapping into the balance of the bond from the Center Rutland Fire Station. And I have paid 3 invoices out of that balance. The balance was $54,000. And after this third one that's in the orders right now, and these are all engineering invoices, for that bond will be to $26,699 after paying this one. So I just want to keep track of that because then we'll need our next plan of action that we've talked about, what to tap into. And the last thing is, you will see a posting in the paper. I've asked the paper to run it every day for 2 weeks right now to see the response, but I am looking for a part-time administrative assistant to myself and to Susan, as a third part-time person in my office. I've received a couple of inquiries. But if you're interested in that, look at the ad in the paper. It'll tell you what your qualifications I'm looking for and how to apply. I'm also looking to put it on Indeed as well. And it's
Good.
also on our social media sites. There's been talks and several conversations about the volume of and complexity of things in the office just for two people in this day and age with everything that's changed since COVID. There's just a lot of stuff and I'd like to keep on top of it. And the only way to do it is with a third person. And it just seems to be that would make my office run way more efficiently and I can focus on the things that a treasurer should focus on rather than some of the things that a third person could take over for me.
That's why we put it in the budget. Good.
We're glad you're jumping on that.
Absolutely. And obviously, I mean, it's hard when we knew that Susan and I were among the last ones to get COVID and struck me. So it's not anticipated and it's certainly not easy for one person to do anything in that office by themselves.
No, and in that regard, I'd like to convey the board's thanks to Susan for filling in admirably. She was really, really busy and swamped, but she kept up with the work pace and you're lucky to have her in that office.
I always know that I'm lucky to have her. Absolutely.
Yep. So, any questions for town clerk treasurer?
We got in enough in this tax installment to more than cover the school tax that we just paid out, right?
Correct.
Good.
I made sure that I looked in our bank because that is a significant amount.
Yes.
And for people to know that their budget had to go up for reasons, the school budget had to go up. And we take that into account in our tax rate when we calculate our tax rate in the summertime. And that's what the state gives us for our tax rate. So we anticipate the taxes coming in to cover this, knowing that some people may have forgotten or some people decide to do it later. We have to account if we have enough money to give the school their each installment after taxes. And we do have enough this time.
Did we have to dip into the cash to open it all? If you know.
I'm thinking, I don't think so.
Okay.
Doing a very rough, quick thing in my head right now, what I know is in the bank and how much that is. Thinking we didn't have to.
Okay, good to know.
Mhm.
Thanks.
But it's
Any other questions of the town clerk treasurer? No. Joe, you all set?
I am.
Okay, thank you, Kari.
welcome.
Thanks,
Good
Kari.
report. Our police chief is celebrating his anniversary this evening or today. And so, in his place, the deputy chief, Ted Washburn, will give the police report, and Lynette Gallipo, our very capable dispatcher and the expert on dispatch, will give us a recap. We have in front of us, I think you have,
Very quickly. First thing is the 2-week calls for service, 57 calls, 15 traffic stops. See where they are by location. So again, highest spot was 7 South. It's the way it is. We know this. Charges ranging from retail theft
couple other misdemeanors, and then a couple felony arrests mixed in there as well. Grand larceny and a felony unlawful mischief. So any questions about the 2-week report? Okay. Next topic.
Well, general question.
Yes.
If you were to summarize, are there getting to be any less calls in the southern section
So
than normal?
prime example. Myself, Chief Dumas, Officer Delehanty, from 4 PM yesterday afternoon to 7 PM yesterday. Ended with lodging one guy on 2 warrants. Chief Dumas and Officer Delehanty recovered a $1,500 bicycle that was stolen out of the city. One woman was arrested for violating her 24/7 curfew, but we can't take her to custody because that's what bail reform does. So we issued her a citation. And Officer Delehanty had another retail theft literally 10 minutes after leaving the plaza. And again, today I had a retail theft, sat in the plaza for about an hour and a half. Left at 4, at 4:10, Dick's Sporting Goods was calling me saying, hey, somebody just ran out the door.
Right, they have watch people. The cops just left them on in.
So, no, the calls are very consistent, which is at a higher volume than we've ever seen.
Okay, thank you.
Next packet you guys have. Back in June, this goes into the whole regional dispatching thing. Back in June, Commissioner Sherling had sent out a letter informing towns and department heads about what their plans and what they were doing to help alleviate the dispatch shortage for dispatchers with Vermont State Police. That is the first letter. You'll see it's dated June 8th. And there is on page 2 immediate action that they recommend. Thanks to Lynette. We have done that. So we have things ready to go for that one. However,
If I could just break in for a minute, the first
you
one,
break in wherever you want.
you're gonna regret that. The first letter, June 8th, or what was it, June 9th, June 8th, was pretty much the state, and this was under Commissioner Sherling, had said that they were short dispatchers, short staff, can't train them, can't get them. So they were going to try to alleviate it by going to 12-hour shifts with their dispatcher 911 call takers and pay them more, because we know that throwing more money at it always works. Now, September 8th, we received another letter. This one came from the new commissioner, Jennifer Morrison. The first letter stated that if they continue to run short on dispatchers, there may be an emergency edict that for so many days, because they're short, you're going to have to provide this. We're not going to be able to do it. Now, in September 8th, Jen Morrison states that they are point blank getting out of the business. Effective October 1st, they will be answering only emergency calls, only emergency 911s. If you call them directly, they will just put you through to whichever police department would cover that, and you would get that department's voicemail. They will not answer questions. They're not going to start cases. So a lot of this work is falling back on us again. And we have been talking about it. Of course, we haven't had it long. So in less than 2 weeks, we're on our own. What worries me significantly is they will not be, like I said, they will not be answering calls or phones. They're not going to get the information for the people in order to decide whether this is an emergency or not. Because sometimes, honestly, after 25 years, I can tell you, you don't really know until you get into the discussion on what an emergency is. So if they automatically put somebody through to a department's voicemail, there's a real danger there. And like I said, that comes from my experience. Okay, some of the worst calls I've ever had sound like nothing. And you get there and they're huge. So I'm deathly afraid for our citizens on this new protocol. It's not the service they deserve. It's not what they're paying. The state police are still getting the same funds they did when they were fully staffed. They're still getting the same funds for everything, but they're not providing the service. Now, their service has been decreasing for the last year. I won't go there. So anyways, it's been going downhill and now it's going to really kind of stop.
Can I just be clear for people who
Yep.
might be listening? If you have an emergency, you still call 911,
Yeah, I'm
correct?
getting there.
But,
Correct.
okay.
I'm
And
getting there because I've got a new number for them to call. You don't call the old number at all anymore. You'll get nothing.
that's non-emergency.
Right.
Okay.
But anytime you have medical, fire, police,
Yeah.
life or death emergency, dial 911. They will answer. They will dispatch still for all emergency circumstances. It's the non-emergency that they are putting off. They will not answer. If I go back, if I get into the phone number still, emergency 911, just call 911. And believe me, if you call them and you don't have an emergency, they will let you know and they will get you on the voicemail that you should be on. Westminster Dispatch, I will give, I don't know who has a phone or a pen out there. The old 773-9101 number is not to be used anymore. You will get nothing. You'll get a recording. You will not go anywhere. Nobody will talk to you. This was their way to shut the public off. Their new dispatch number, I haven't been told not to give this out, so I will, is 802-722-4628. Again, that's 802-722-4628. And that will go to their dispatch center. And I would say the only time that they're going to want citizens to use it is if it's a reference to a trooper, a VSP case, you can call that number. If you're trying to get through for Rutland Town, Rutland City, don't call it. You're not good. They're just going to put you through to voicemail again. So I do have the best way to get hold of Rutland Town Police is to call our direct line to the office, the police office. If you call into town hall, you will get the recording. And when Kari gets through telling you how to get hold of everybody but police, at the end, it says to call the police, you dial 505. After you finally, huh?
Extension 505.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So you don't have a direct number.
Yes, I do. I'm going to get there.
Okay.
But a lot of people have been calling Kari's number and you still can get to us eventually by that. So you dial the 505, be prepared. The phone is going to ring 6 times. So it's not that nobody's answering, but it will ring 6 times before you're prompted to leave a message. I do have to update the message on that line because it does still tell you to dial the 9101 number, and that's no good anymore. But if you wait long enough, then you will be able to leave a message. The quickest way is to call the police office directly. Police department number is 802-772-4327. That's 772-4327. Again, if someone's in the office, they're going to answer it. If it rings 5 or 6 times, don't hang up. You will get voicemail. Some people are saying that voicemail is unavailable. It is not. They're both working. I've tested them numerous times over the last few weeks. I am going to try to get to maybe make 4 rings. 6 rings is a long time to wait for somebody or a voicemail. But that's still the direct line to the PD office is the number you want to call for any non-emergency complaint. What's going to happen is because we are not a 24/7 agency, you may not get a return call for a day or two. It's going to depend on when you call. If I have an officer on that day, if it's something I personally can answer, I'll do it. I'll call. But what happens is I'm here almost every morning, even when I take a day off. I will go through the answering machine. I will make cases and they'll sit in queue. So when the officers sign on, they know the calls, the cases they have, and they will take it by priority at that point. It's the only way for us not to lose somebody. So I'm going to try to make sure I get through it during the day. If you should call and leave a message, if an officer is working and is in the office, he'll pick up the message and they can input a case or a call. But I'm just saying the way our schedule is, if there's a holiday, vacation, whatever, it can be 2 days before you hear from anyone. And that is, again, as far as I'm concerned, a real safety problem. You know, if it's a minor accident or something, it's not life or death. I mean, okay, we'll take it, but you know, in certain things I can do and get it done with, but it's a real problem. The Rutland Town Police Department, I'm sorry, fire's on my mind, will continue to serve Rutland Town the best of their ability. But again, we're not a 24/7 agency. Our chief is looking at ways to mix up perhaps the shifts so that we have someone on in the day and maybe afternoon with the new directed patrol that we're trying to set up. Those patrols are only for, say, the plaza, the Home Depot, Big Lots Plaza, Tractor Supply. The officers that are doing that extra patrol, it is not on regular duty hours. And therefore, they will not take actual cases. Unless it's an emergency, of course, they're going to fly because they do. But it's just going to be a huge problem to try to get this out to our citizens. I am scared to death that someone is going to fall through the cracks. No calls are to be made to our officers' cell phones. They have a bad habit of answering their phones, whether they're off duty, away on vacation. They should not be answering them, but they do. And that, again, causes a problem because we don't know what kind of information or case that they have. And sometimes we end up putting in duplicate cases. I'm afraid someone's going to get dropped. So far, it has not happened. But so please, if you have their cell phone numbers, do not call them. Call the direct office line. Our original handout business cards, unfortunately, had their cell phones on it. The new ones do not. So they have our business line. Now, as far as fire goes, they're in a slightly better position because they do kind of fall under the emergency rule. So dispatch will answer, they will call out the town fire department. If no one answers, they will do a second or third tone until someone acknowledges that they're en route. That ends their involvement. They are not going to tell, they're not going to put in that they arrived, they're not going to put in when they clear the scene. And that's kind of been troublesome already. But if there is a need for mutual aid, they will tone out and get mutual aid for the fire department. So some things, an ambulance, they will answer the fire department for those. But otherwise, the fire department is going to be responsible to keep their own times. There's been several incidences in just the last week where Bill's working in his office and I said, "Oh, you're back from the fire call." Yeah, that was 5 hours ago. They will do nothing. So I will go in and I'll clear them. But I'm just saying this is the type of service that we're going to get, which is almost worse than nothing. Safety issues, our constables, well, Del is fine. JP does not have a tablet. He does not have access to our Valcor system. So when he does a traffic stop, right now, if I'm working and he has a traffic stop, I'll start a case automatically, put the information in the way it should be, and we're fine. If he stops vehicles when I'm not on duty, and when he calls them in, dispatch will make a note in our log saying that he stopped such and such on this road. As of October 1st, I hope they're still going to do that. There's no guarantee they will, but they will not run any people. They will not run any vehicles. So you could be, an officer could be out there with a wanted person, could be for murder, could be anything. Officer gets in trouble, he's going to yell. It's going to take dispatch extra time to figure out who yelled and where they are, because they're not keeping track of any of that anymore. Even though it may be on their screen, they're not doing it now. Typically, they are to check on officers every hour if they haven't stopped a car or called in. That is not happening right now either. So an officer could be on duty for 10 hours and never hear from dispatch. Dispatch never hearing from them. They're going to be responsible for putting themselves on duty, taking themselves off. There have been instances in my career where officers really needed help and it was like talking to crickets. Again, a huge safety problem. So I don't know how they're going to do. John Paul is our only really thorn right now. He's the only one I have to worry about because he doesn't have Valcor. You know, even lately, dispatchers and I'm not afraid to say it, believe me, I've already talked to Lance, but anyways, they are not doing anything right now. It is a dispatcher's job to know where every officer is at all times. They do not. They do not check on them. If they stop and say, I have Joseph Brown, date of birth, blah, 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 they'll make a note, but they don't look him up. Okay, I don't know how many times I've called these guys on their cell phones or texted them and say, he's wanted, be careful. He carries a knife in his left hip pocket. He's a drug user. He's got scabies or whatever. Things that I can tell him, the officer, to keep them safe. Dispatch has stopped that for over a year now. I cannot work 24/7. I wish I could. I'd feel better about it and their safety. But that's what we're looking at right now. What my problem is, I need to know, like I said, this is just barely started. And with the other southern problems, we've discussed it back and forth, but we are trying to move ahead because October 1st is less than 2 weeks away. We need to get the word out to our Rutland town citizens, and those are the only ones I'm truly worried about right now, about how to contact us if they need us. They are not going to get a friendly voice if they call 911 and it is not an emergency. Somebody's already complained about that. So I want them to be able to get hold of us. I know
Bill,
the chief.
Bill, would you put this critical information that Lynette has just given us, would you make sure that that gets up as soon as possible?
I know the chief is writing an article for the Circle.
Okay.
We're going to write an article for all the websites. I'm asking you guys if you know another way short of taking a page out, ad out in the Rutland Herald.
Front porch forum's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad idea to
Well,
put it.
there's
in the
another
Rutland
way
Herald.
too, and that is that, you know, I don't, this is critical stuff, really. I mean, this is critical to safety and security of our taxpayers. And I don't see why each taxpayer in the town couldn't have a card sent to them with this information on it to every address in the town.
We'll make sure when we send them that the postage goes to the right place. It's taken out of the right account.
I'm a lot more
I'm
concerned.
picking.
Right now, I'm a lot more, after hearing your report, I'm a lot more concerned about the people getting the information than I am about who pays for it, and we'll find a way to pay for something that's that critical.
Right.
Linda, I guess my question to you is, are you also saying that maybe we need to have another dispatcher?
No.
Okay.
In order to, and I'm not tooting my own horn. I was a dispatcher for 23 years for both the state and
Right.
Rutland City full-time. So I'm very well acquainted with dispatching. And when I came here, I started learning the administrative part of it, which is in itself a whole different job.
Yeah.
I am too nosy, and my background is too much of a dispatcher to sit there and not do the dispatching also. There's been a few times where Ted will tell you I've come close to grabbing the radio and just saying something on it because I am very concerned, and legally I could do it, but the ramifications would be horrible. Yeah.
That never bothered you.
Well, it does because I have to answer to the deputy chief in chief. And they can't afford to give me days off because nobody can do my job.
Can I ask, are you doing full 40 hours now?
If you look on, yeah, well, it's supposed to.
Are you
be-
getting
I'm
paid
supposed to
for
be-
40 hours?
No, because
Okay,
I
but
am-
are you doing?
I'm
be
getting
quiet.
paid for
Just
what
be
I'm
quiet.
working.
Be quiet. Is she working 40 hours?
Officially, on paper, no. Unofficially.
Is she working? Okay. So if you're working 40 hours, you damn well need to be paid for 40.
I am getting paid for what I am working. Okay. Let's just, usually, sometimes I have to run back from home to
God,
put
you're
something.
Well, this is all a personnel discussion. anyway.
It's exactly. And you're not going to change me, I'm sure. But no, so I mean, and you can tell by, this is a huge concern to me.
I know it is, and I know you
State
care.
law says they have to dispatch for us, but oh well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure next year when their budget comes out, the state police budget will go down because they're no longer.
Yeah.
So, and I don't mean I'm being facetious. So exactly what does the police, the state police do? What is their job now?
Okay.
If they,
What they are doing, even when we're not on duty, state police, the Vermont troopers would pick up our calls.
right.
Very slowly for a while. They kind of backed off and they'd say, well, hold it for Rutland Town, depending on what stick was in charge. Lately, if it isn't an emergency, hold it for Rutland Town. I pity when I read that, I kind of chuckle because it's people that are in the parking lot waiting for officers. Well, they've been waiting 2 days. I don't think they're still in the parking lot, but that's the type of thing. The state police are not, and I'm sure they're under directives from their higher up. By October 1st, pretty much, and by the end of the year for sure, they are going to be major crimes and traffic control. That is it. They don't want to take any more calls in any municipalities.
Okay, one more question.
Yes.
Would JP be safer if we provided him with a tablet?
That would be,
That's
yes.
Ted just said yes.
Yeah, technically,
Okay,
yes.
so
but I
why
wouldn't
hasn't
give him.
anybody put in for a tablet?
So, Officer Delehanty has his tablet.
Yes.
It's up and running now. Now that we know which tablets are usable, not that big of an issue. It's just a matter of training JP on what buttons he can and cannot touch.
Like I said, yes,
Sorry, JP.
yes, he could, but John Paul, you want to chip in?
Oh, no, don't get him started now. We really do have, we got. an
Marie can
executive
train
session
him.
that we've gotta get
I've been
going.
told I'm trainable.
Okay.
Well, I don't know who told you that.
So yeah, I mean, he could, and we're looking
So
at that.
I think that's important.
Yeah. And like I said, he doesn't have to have the expertise that these guys do, who have all used this system a lot more than John Paul has. But when he stops a car, literally he has to push a button and that's it. And I don't even want him to fill anything out in it. I'll take care of that. But, So, yeah, I mean, but officer safety is still a problem because he's still going to be out there stopping cars. He doesn't know how to run the name, the vehicle. Is the vehicle stolen? Is the person wanted? Is he, and unfortunately, as you were talking about the southern end, we had a lot of people down there with a lot of alerts. And that could be from anything from a murderer to drug user to you name it. And that's information these guys aren't getting. Now, if they're going down for a hot call, they are not on their tablets or MDCs.
What's a hot call?
Say it's an assault in progress, a domestic, someone with a knife, a gun.
Needs to know.
Yes. They are busy getting there.
Okay.
And in their mind, you know, figuring out how we're going to do it, where I'm going in and this and that, they cannot run that person. So they may not be aware exactly how dangerous
So that's your job
is when I'm there. Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, the state makes it sound like it's not a big deal. It is. And I worry about our citizens a lot.
Can I make a couple of quick?
Yes, well, we got to wrap it up, but I was just going to ask for board comment and go ahead.
Front porch forum, if we can do flyers and get to the school and the kids can take them home, that's just that printout in the back. That's one way. If you could do several, you know, maybe, I don't know, get a stack of them up to the Gables, the Meadows, and then while you're on directed patrol at the south end of town, stop by and pass them out to the merchants. That's going to hit a group.
Yes, it will.
And then if we can, you know, the postcards are not a bad idea, but I'm just trying to think of something immediately.
We have no time. That's just it. I mean, it went from this will be an emergency situation that may last a day or two to boom, October 1st, it's yours.
Yeah.
There was no warning.
Yeah, and that's got to concern you.
Yeah, well, that's a super
Instead
idea
of-
because that gets it out
Instead
there.
of flyers, maybe we should take this and condense it down onto like a really rugged business card. That's something people can put in their wallet. So if they ever need it, they can pull it out.
Yeah.
We can put them down at all the
Good
stores.
idea.
They can put them right at cash registers
Yep.
and try to get that
I'm sure
information
everybody
out.
in this
I like it.
room, including yourself, you know 911 and you know the 773-9101.
Yep.
Okay?
Kari had a question.
Yeah. It's just, we have to retrain them.
Also, what about us giving out magnets for the refrigerator?
Mhm.
Oh,
It would
that's-
just take longer to get, I
Yeah.
think down the road, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, like a business card, you could probably
And
get
then
pretty
in front,
easy
of
and-
course, the
yeah.
town report and
And
whatever.
then we could blow this up and put it on the bulletin board at the transfer station too.
We
Okay,
do have a miscellaneous expense line in the general budget, so we could cover something.
I'm sure Bill's over there figuring out exactly when it was. I was going to task him with coming up with something because he's very creative in this regard.
Yeah, well,
And,
like I said, I've got to, I love Bill's help. I've got to go with my chief first, of course, because he's the boss. And I know that he was going to write the article, maybe together they can, you know, it's just that we're being
Right.
pulled in so many directions. Even when we're on duty, we can't get together to discuss things because they're down in South End City.
Well, I want to conclude this with
Yeah,
two
sorry.
statements. First of all, it ought to be pretty apparent to the citizens of this town how valuable that department and the dispatcher that's controlling the dispatch of our officers and the safety of our officers is. That's number one. And it is number one. Number two, it ought to be apparent that this state is shirking its responsibility in terms of what the taxpayers in this state are paying and what we are getting for that service. And that is a situation that is caused by politics, and the only way it can be solved is through politics. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's the situation we're in. But more and more is being left to the local communities to deal with. And then you wonder, well, what is the function of a state? The state's first function is the safety of its people. My God.
And state law is they will provide this, but they're not going to.
So in any case, thank
I
you.
think we send you up to the state.
I'd have to have Teddy come to bail me out. But yeah,
Thank you, Lynette.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynette.
Questions?
Is that any questions for our deputy chief? And you'll be sticking around for our executive session?
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynette.
You're welcome.
Our next report was Johnny on the spot. Well, his name is not Johnny, but it's Mike Delehanty, our town first constable. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, everybody. Most of what I have written down, Deputy Chief Washburn kind of covered, so I'll keep it pretty quick. As you guys all know, we're spending a lot of time in the south end of town. Been actually really busy last couple of weeks down there. Deputy Chief Washburn mentioned last night, it was a real busy afternoon down there for all of us. The police presence was great. But overall, like I said, I'm just going to reiterate some of the things he said. There was 4 citations to appear in court issued. 2 out of the 4 were for town calls. We assisted VSP and Rutland City with 2 others. Deputy Chief Washburn took 1 into custody for the outstanding warrant. Those 2 bicycles that Chief Dumas and I had recovered, the guy who came and met me down there was a Rutland City case originally. He was so excited that he recovered that bike. I think he figured it was going to be written off, but it was a very expensive bike, so he was overly appreciative of that. But yeah, I mean, we're going to continue to do what we can down there. I mean, they're trying to slow things down, but I think there's actually been an uptick in the last couple of weeks. But we'll continue doing what we're doing and try to slow the criminal activity down. Yeah, that's all I got for now.
Well, we're working on.
I know
We're working very diligently on some more funds for you to do that. So, any questions from board members?
No, thanks, Mike. I'm glad you're honest with us and that south of the city is not a pleasant place, and it's not fair to legitimate people like this gentleman that's running a good motel and is very concerned about not only that motel, but what the meaning of that motel is to the city and to the town.
Right.
And I wish everybody was that way. In my opinion, that is not what I'm seeing.
Agreed. So,
Joe, you all set?
I am. I appreciate what you guys are doing.
absolutely, you got it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Not a problem at all. Thanks.
And our next report will be from our capable second constable, JP Faignant, town health officer and public safety building clerk of the works. Good evening, John Paul.
Good evening. In listening to the discussions earlier, I hope you got the sense that that curtain is closing a lot quicker than we thought. And I would appreciate it if the board could give some consideration to finding some funding for me so that I could have that program available when I do my traffic stops, whether we deficit spend from my budget or find it somewhere else. And then I know you want to keep this short. The only other item that we would have in front of the board is the Perkins Road. Their deadline has passed. I did submit additional photographs for your consideration to show that the property still meets the criteria of my prior report. And while there has been some cleanup, the dangers from what remains still remain. So I'll leave
Still
that.
looks pretty unsightly to me, JP.
It is. It
JP,
is.
what's the date of the photos, please?
So the date of the photos are the date that their obligation to comply with your order of the last day of that time frame.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Oh, I don't have the date in front of me.
Okay.
What is it?
I think it was the 31st.
Of
August.
Okay.
And that's all I have to report to you tonight.
So what's the follow-up on this, JP? The order has, the date is expired and it's still not cleaned up.
So I think now it goes to the lawyer, Don.
for enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the pleasure of the board? We send the non-compliance to the lawyer and,
Yeah, I think JP needs to be in touch with Kevin. And Kevin's on and JP's on, so they're probably listening to each other. So whatever Kevin now wants JP to do for putting together the packet of non-compliance, that
Right.
would be helpful. Thanks.
And is he asking us for a deficit spend to get, are we talking about the tablet with that?
well, we can.
JP.
I don't see any reason why we can't discuss it right now. I mean, it's, you want to
It's a
do it or do you
safety
don't?
issue.
We would do it, we'll find a way to do it.
Right. I believe it's a safety issue.
Maybe we'll have some funding by the end of this budget to replenish that with.
Yeah.
Right, so
I would
deficit
think
spend
so.
and get the
Yeah.
tablet.
Get it
JP, get the tablet.
All right. Thank you. And I'm committed to the training, so I will be doing more than just.
I'd like to call for a motion to, in that regard, if somebody would be inclined to make that motion.
So move.
Motion's been made to purchase a tablet for the second constable. What's the
I'll
what's
second the motion.
nomenclature?
What's the cost? Anybody have a rough idea?
Remember what there's two elements to that. There's
Yeah.
The tablet itself, and then it's gonna need data service.
Yeah.
That's a monthly charge.
Yeah.
So Mike pays, as far as I know, Mike paid for that out of his budget. I don't know where the monthly service comes from.
Okay, do
But
you
I
know
don't-
what the
I-
numbers are?
I have no idea. I
Okay.
wasn't prepared to answer that question. I wasn't prepared for this tonight, so.
Rough guess on the tablet, I think around 700-800.
Probably
okay.
Easily, yeah.
All right,
Monthly fee.
Is probably between 30 and 50 a month.
all right, that's fine. So tablet not to exceed $1,000 and the monthly fee not to exceed, what did you just say?
It's probably between 30 and 50.
Okay, not to exceed 50. Okay,
There's your motion.
Second.
Motion's been,
She's second, I guess.
yeah. that
motion
was-
was made by Sharon,
Sharon made
seconded
it.
by Mary,
Yep.
and you have the critical information. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And it's unanimous, and we will proceed with that.
Thank you very
Very
much.
good. Thank you, JP. Anything else?
That's all I have for you tonight.
Thanks again, JP. Have a good evening. And our next report will be from Bill Sweet.
Good evening.
Evening, Bill.
No, he left. I tell him don't buy anything because I gotta look at it tomorrow. All right. Few things. I won't take too much time, I hope. From your packet. So A was the information for Kyle Medash, the ANR. If you would please just save that information for a couple meetings because it was a lot to print out. So what the letter A from your packet, just tuck that away and when he comes, we'll pull it back out. There are a couple ordinances in your packet. One is our peddler vendor ordinance and the other is the informational building permit. I'm sorry, the permit tracking ordinance is one. And I think I wrote that wrong on the index, so ignore that. So B is the permit tracking ordinance, and then C is the vendor peddler one. There's two versions of each. One is like the new layout and the new format, and the other is how it exists. So this, I talked to Kevin yesterday a little bit about it. He hadn't had a chance to review them yet, so we don't have any opinion on changes from him.
Well, I've looked at it. If you want to talk about it, it's fine.
Okay.
Sure.
So on I looked at the permit tracking ordinance, which we originally called the permit channeling ordinance. On the proposed changes, they're fine. Now, well, several years ago, the cap got raised from 500 to 800. So we can change the fines for, the multiple incident offense to be a maximum of 8, and then the settlement, the waiver penalty is half of those. So we could, if the board wants, increase the fines or leave them the same. We had gone to the maximum 500 before. Now the maximum is 8. I don't think it's a good idea to add the little piece of enforcement about that we may seek an injunction, because it's already good enough as is. We cite this statute under which we enforce, and then that has a variety of powers, of which getting an injunction is one. And I never like mentioning one but not others, when we don't have to say anything more than we'll enforce under according to 1974A, and leave it at that. If you say one and not the other, now you've created an argument. When you tried to use the one you didn't mention, oh no, the select board didn't want that one, or would have said so, because it said A, it didn't say B. So I would just leave that piece as is. I do have some concerns over the proposed form itself. It really seemed like a zoning building permit form in the way it asked questions, and we don't have authority, we don't have zoning, and we don't have a building code, because we would have to hire someone who's by statute qualified and authorized to do the inspections. We don't have that. We're not going down that path, which is why we ended up with the permit channeling ordinance, that's what we called it originally, many years ago. If you look in the preamble to that ordinance, it talks about the various other types of ordinances that we're trying to get information from people on an application in order to be able to channel them, direct them to the regulatory programs that we have and even that the state has. And if the form should actually elicit the information that would alert the applicant and the town, alert Bill to what the project is, and therefore what other regulatory permits might be needed. And I don't think that current form does that. It seems like it's a zoning building permit form to me, and the listers are going to have the form anyway, and they can do their investigation about how many bedrooms if they want or not. But it's all nice information, but it's not doesn't zero in on what the ordinance is actually trying to do.
So what would you recommend?
Well, I would think we would want questions on the form that find out information that would lead someone to be directed to the regulatory program. Like, where is your property located? Is it located in a flood hazard zone? Lots of people are in the town of Rutland. They don't know it. They don't even know there's a flood hazard ordinance. We don't ask that information on, at least I didn't see it, on the application form. That's the kind of thing we should be asking.
I would move we table this.
Second.
Yes.
I mean, I think so on the form, but I think the ordinance is pretty much ready to go with minor changes. If the board wants to increase the fines, for instance.
We're still going to table that. There's a lot of discussion to be had with everything.
And not only that, Kevin, but you alluded to language that tracks more as zoning than town planning, and we need to have more information about that. so that we
Right,
don't get into the weeds of trying to do zoning through.
Yeah, and I can remember we built our house 25 years ago, and it was mandated. A company out of Arizona had determined if where we put our house was in a flood zone. And God forbid, if there was a flood zone where I lived, then no one.
We'd all be in trouble.
No, in the ark.
Yeah,
So,
start building the yard.
so I think we do need to table it. And
Yeah, motion to table is non-debatable. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion, the issue is tabled, the permit tracking ordinance until it's brought from the table. So put that right alongside of the flood hazard order bylaw information. Next issue is the peddlers.
This one was a little less difficult. So I did add whenever on all the ordinances that I've been working on at the beginning, I do add like a revision section. And that's purely just so you know what changes I've already added. And most of it is just formatting and wording and things like that, and changing selectmen to select board and all that kind of stuff. But any of them I've done, I always add the revision section at the beginning of that, just so you know. And your copies, I think I give you color ones, or are highlighted where I did a lot of the changes and stuff to make it easier to find. So with this one, we talked about, because we wanted to discuss the schedule and the fee. So I very arbitrarily came up with a fee schedule and timeline for those. So that's in the license required section. I'm sorry, no, it's in the permit section.
Enforcement.
Yeah.
Well,
So it was on page 4 has the fee schedule.
tell us which of these we're working on.
So they're the same thing. The one in your right hand is the ordinance as you see it and it exists today.
Okay, right.
The one
'cause
with
it
the
doesn't
town-
have any strikeouts. So what we're
Right.
operating on right now is the one with the seal on it.
The one with the seal on it is the format and the layout that I am recommending we kind of just adopt as the format and the layout for all of them. Because our ordinances are laid out in about 5 different formats right now. So they're not very consistent. So I'm sorry, Mary. Yeah. So the ones that has the strikeouts and the line numbers to the left of it is the new view of it. So on that one, under the license application section, which is section 5, talks about what the license of the application should be. And then I added in that highlighted section a schedule and timeline for permits to be valid, which didn't exist before.
Okay, so I'm going to move, because I know that we're on a time crunch here in 2 different ways.
Right. So for that event, so that lady did call me back, and I talked to her. I said, we're willing to discuss that. I said, but I need an application for the board to be able to discuss to start that process. And she said, okay, haven't seen one yet.
Well, okay. But for the purposes of anticipating that we're going to get that in,
If we get it.
I would move that we adopt the draft, which has the seal on it, with the revisions, most of which are related to a 1-day or shorter duration permit fee schedule, which addresses most of her concerns. And then I'll speak to it if there's a second.
I'll
If not-
second that.
Okay,
So there is a process to go through that
yes,
so you want to start the process of warning it and things like that. So,
right.
yes.
Now, I will say that the ordinance needs other work. For
Okay.
example, because we don't make a distinction between peddlers for profit and nonprofit.
Absolutely.
So down the road.
Yep.
But this will do for the immediate purpose if that applications come in, but I wouldn't put this too much
We
further
can amend
away.
it
Right,
Yeah.
as many times as we want to, so.
Okay.
I agree.
I did read it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did as well, and I found the same additions were necessary, but
Oh, I mean, I know there's the other ones. I have some.
no, I mean,
Points the other ones,
the
but-
profit, basically the profit, non-profit, because we didn't address that. But I like the language, especially at the end of the fee schedule, where it says in the exercise of its discretion, the select board of the town of Rutland may modify the duration of permits and a schedule of fees for permits issued pursuant to this ordinance by request of the applicant. So it pretty much gives us the flexibility to do what we feel is appropriate without having to amend the ordinance every time we do it. So you have you have a motion and it's seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Joe, you okay with it?
I am. Good job, Bill.
Thank you.
Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of adoption of this ordinance as proposed in the motion signify by saying aye.
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 And it's unanimous and the ordinance is adopted as drafted.
The process is starting.
Yeah.
Can't adopt it.
Yeah, well,
so we
it's,
gotta-
you know,
I'll get that going. So I've been doing this kind of updates to the ordinances for, I've been going down the list basically and doing them all. I have given highway their group, I've given the police department their group, I've given the fire department their group. So, and there's going to be some for you that are just general ones to review. So what I was doing with them is I gave it to them. So here's the new version, here's your old version, said make notes, let's go over it, talk about it in committee meetings, then we can go on from there, because there's just throughout them, there's changes we need to make, just some wording and things like that. But some of them need actual, like, more in-depth work. The planning commission, they're going to take up the subdivision one on Thursday, which is there's gonna be a fair amount of work in that one. So,
and I imagine at some point, Bill, fairly soon, we'll be having a master motion, if you will, of adoption of all of the ordinances in the new form so that we can, as a formality, we go through the warning process again. So that we actually have a valid new draft form so that no one can complain that, oh, well, wait a minute, that's not the way that ordinance was written.
right. So that was part of the reason that, as I'm looking through these, like, that was kind of the genesis of going through and come up with like a new layout for it, because this is like, it's nothing like we use now, but it lists the amendment dates and things like that, which we've never really had clearly before. So the street and sidewalk one has got tons of amendments because of all the speed limits we've changed, things like that. It's got but this will have version histories, things like that in there, so that's easier to follow. But we do have to do them individually. There's a process for amending the ordinances, but we have to do them. We can't say like A through Z is now done. We have to warn them as individual ones. We can do it as part of one meeting, but we have to warn them individually. So it's not a hard process. A lot harder for me than it is for you. So don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. So, but just so for the committee members to know, for individual committees, that will probably come up in your committees for the different ones. Other updates. The website has had a lot of work done to it recently. We have a new clerk and treasurer page, totally different layout and format. We have eliminated several individual pages and kind of combined them all under one page. So now it's a lot easier to find resources. So you go to clerk and treasurer page, it's all right there. There's also a new how do I section at the top of the page. So you can go right there and it gives you links to different parts and places to go. And we added a frequently asked questions option on there too, right at the toolbar at there, which gives the answers to a lot of the frequently asked questions. So myself and Kari and others helped write the answers to these, and there's a lot of links in there. So it's going to make it a lot easier to find what people are looking for, and hoping to add the functionality is going to be a little easier to manage. We're also working on a business directory for the page for town businesses. So it'll have like business names, addresses, phone numbers, all their contact information. So we have created a form on the website and for people to fill out. So businesses can go there and give us their information so we can build a database and get that launched. So we've advertised that in a couple different places. So it's looking really good. We've received several invoices from the Gleason Road transfer station for electronic recycling and propane tanks that have been dropped off by town employees, totaling several hundreds of dollars. And we have politely refused each invoice because we never brought the items there. They've sent us invoices with signatures that are illegible, so we don't know who it is. But apparently there are people claiming to be town employees that are bringing items that are being dropped off that would be charged for, and they're being billed to us. So we've talked a little bit about bringing back our town IDs. I did order the ID printer. I got a good deal on it, so we've ordered the ID printer, so we can once again create town IDs for everybody. And I will let them know as soon as that it arrives, actually tomorrow. But as soon as we get that out there, that I'll let them know. It's like, if you have somebody who claims to be a town employee, ask for their ID. And if they don't have it, they're not one. So,
Did you explain to them that?
Oh yeah.
And what was their reply?
They acknowledged that they didn't ask for anything more than the signature, and there's been no issue. They've removed the invoice. They've been very good about it. There's been no trouble with that, other than the fact that they're just accepting things expected to be paid for, and now they're not going to be. So is what it is. So we will have that, and we'll take care of it on our end. But that's concerning that's now 3 or 4 times we've had that same issue. So someone's figured out that they can go there and say they're from the town and drop it off for free. So, yep. Kari is on her to-do list is going to get me the list of everybody in town that that has a paycheck, so we can get the personnel policy signed for everybody. So I left copies on your desks for you all to sign at your pleasure. So there's the acknowledgement, and then there's the elected official part of that too. So that's on your desks when you're ready. And
I think we would be setting a good example if we all signed that like very promptly. And
so I've got a spreadsheet. So when she gives me the list, I'm just going to put it on there so it's easier to follow for like who's elected, because we've elected, appointed, and hired. So it's all kind of a little different depending upon the situation. So, yeah. All right, that is everything I have.
Any questions for Bill? Joe, you all set?
I am.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Right, absolutely.
And, committee meeting updates or schedule. Does anyone have a committee report? I don't believe we've had any committees that met between meetings. I don't see any reports in here. So,
No, I met with the fire department, but it was just to get some information because I'm writing
that's not
an article, and we did discuss a few things, but nothing that needs to come.
nothing to bring before the board. No. Okay. Not going to go to old business and new business. We've pretty much covered everything down there. So motion would be appropriate for executive session for 2 items of litigation.
Say that again, Don. Or what?
2 items of litigation with our town attorney.
I move we go into executive session for 2 items that are up for litigation.
Second that.
Motion's made and seconded, and the police chief would be invited into the executive session. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 None opposed. We are now in executive session in 29.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
I'll second it.
Motion's made and seconded that we adjourn. It's non-debatable, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Okay,
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't hear any, so we're going home.
good.
Good night, all.